Evet arkadaşlar bugün Devante yanımızda. Kendisi İngiltere'de yaşayıp orada satış yapıyor. Bu aralar çok sıkıntılar yaşıyor arbitraj yapan insanlar. Türkiye'de yaşıyoruz diye Watt'a başvurmuyorduk 80 bin pound satışa gelene kadar. Çünkü ondan sonra başvurmanız gerekiyor. Ama biraz Amazon ve UK bastırmaya başladı. Çok hesaplar kapanıyor, mailler geliyor. Onunla ilgili biraz konuşacağız. Devante önceden İstanbul'a gelmiş falan, oradan tanıştık biz Twitter'dan. O konularla ilgili de konuşacağız. Şimdi İngilizceye dönüyorum. Altyazı zaten eklenecek. Hello again, Davante. We just chatted a bit, but now the
Nice.
viewers can hear it too. So, can you tell about yourself a little bit? How old are you? Like, how many years ago you started selling on Amazon?
Okay, so yep, name is Devonte, 30 years old. Started selling Amazon back in 2021. This was literally towards the end of COVID. Reason I started, I'm not sure similar to people in Turkey, but for me it was going back to work, was looking to earn extra money, and then I think I saw some people on Twitter posting about making money reselling on Amazon. So in my head, I thought it was worth a try, and been doing it ever since. Last year did about 200K in revenue, which was a bit lower than usual, but I had to take a break in June just due to some issues. But we're back again this year, going hard and looking to do minimum 200 but max around about 500K if all goes well.
Like, do you will say like when trying to scale this business, it's get harder?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's a hard business because it's an ever changing business. Amazon is can be difficult to work with. They're always changing the rules, increasing prices. There's more competition, but as long as you're constantly working on it and finding
Like,
your own edge,
even setting up an account, you need to do a video call with the Amazon now.
exactly. Yeah, we actually
I
funny enough when
I
yeah,
bet
go on.
you didn't do it like earlier. You applied for Amazon because I
No,
didn't.
no, actually, I did. I think because I've had
Oh,
two Amazon accounts. I had one earlier on, but I never used. And when I
I
started
see,
my
I see.
new one, they in 2021, they actually made me do a video call. And actually, it was like a one-off where I had to show my identification and upload everything. So I kind of came on towards the tail end when they were getting a bit more strict with making sure that people were who they say they are.
Yep, yep.
Mm.
So, did you like apply for a VAT beforehand to say 85K?
No,
Or
no. So the way VAT works in the UK is voluntary. It only becomes actually mandatory when you hit 85K in revenue. So not profit, not cash, but revenue. So if you sell £85,000 on Amazon, you're expected to register with HMRC, which is like a government agency, claiming that you are now paying for tax or
yep, yep.
VAT, as they call it.
I bet a lot of like listeners got a mail from them. They immediately send it when you create your LTD. Yeah,
Well, to be
because I
honest,
asked these VAT questions. In Turkey, there is a lot of like problems right now. People doing
mhm,
arbitrage to UK, they
yeah,
usually don't apply for VAT beforehand like you do. Like you didn't do because you have the rights. Like why you should do it? Like it will lower your margins.
yeah.
So no need to do it. But now people have to. So how should they do? Like they don't know. They don't have any like CPA because there is not many Turkish people in UK. So there is
Yeah,
no they can like trust the accountants in UK, the local ones, because they don't speak English that well, stuff like that. They want Turkish people, and there's not many who does this job. So
okay.
what do you suggest to them to do? Like which website or your accountant is it? Like,
So I did it for my accountant, but the process is pretty simple. There's a website we have. If I check it now, it's called www.gov.uk, and that's essentially our government website, and that gives you a lot of information in regards to how to pay tax, how to pay your corporation tax, how to pay for your VAT, and all sorts of information regarding doing things that relate to the government in the UK. So on if you type in VAT UK.gov, you'd probably come up to a website that says register for VAT, and it will walk you through the process on what you need to do when it comes to getting set up with VAT, like how to register, how to pay it, and so on and so forth. So the
Yeah.
information is readily
I know the
available.
website. I will put under the description. Açıklamaya koyarım o siteyi arkadaşlar. Yeah. Okay. So it's a simple process, you say. I think, yeah, people overthink stuff like this. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. Just find
Yeah,
a CPA in UK. You didn't even know them. Like, just check their Google score, stuff like the testimonials. I actually find them in the Twitter. In Twitter, there is
mhm.
many like accountants, and they do Amazon also. They know the tricks very well. So I will just apply them. Like, open up a Twitter account, just follow people. They will follow you back. Just put a Amazon seller on your bio. They will sell you something. Don't worry. Other than that, like, you was complaining about your margins. I check your tweets because like before the interview. Like,
Yeah,
is them good? You do UK to UK, right?
yeah. So you take UK. So I buy from UK retailers and flip their products back on Amazon. So there's money to be made. I'm not going to deny, but it can be a hard business, especially when you get to the VAT threshold of 85K. Obviously, your margins get smaller because the way VAT works in this country is we play a, depending on what kind of product you're buying, but if you're buying the standard product, you pay a flat 20% VAT on the sale, but you also pay VAT on the purchase of the good. So the way
Mm.
your VAT calculation would work would be, say for example, you buy something for £10. The VAT you on the cost of purchase would be £2 because 20% of £10 is £2. But then you sell that same item for 20 quid. So the VAT cost on that sale is £4. To calculate how much VAT you owe the government, you take that £4 of VAT you did on the sale minus the £2 you did on the cost of goods, and minus those two together, which gives you £2 VAT you now owe to the government. So now that £2 is essentially tax you owe to the government, regardless of whether you make a profit or not. You need to give them that money. So that reduces your margins. That's why I have a friend that he did about 1 million in revenue in the UK, but he decided to go to the USA because one, the UK market is not as big as the USA market in terms of volume, and
Yeah.
two, the VAT nonsense can be just such a headache, especially when it comes to accounting. I won't deny it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat and be like, it's all easy. It's like, when you register for VAT, there's additional things you have to do on top of now just making sure that your stock is getting into Amazon. One of the main things is making sure you're getting all your invoices, especially for large purchases. And usually I tell people anything over £100, make sure you get a VAT invoice for that. Because when you do your
Mm.
VAT claim from HMRC, they may go, okay, cool. Do you have any invoices for these large purchases here? If you don't, they're gonna be like, okay, sorry, mate, you owe us more VAT compared to what your tax man is saying or your accountant is saying. And now you're arguing back and forth, saying this and that, and rushing to get a VAT invoice to prove that this item was purchased with the 20% VAT, and you're claiming that back correctly.
Too much headache. It seems to scale there, man. Like, did you open up an LLC? Like, do you sell on USA now?
Yeah, so I've not started yet. I did open up an LLC, but as I mentioned last year, I had to slow it down a bit. So the LLC is still open, but I
Mm-hmm.
am sort of trying to figure out how to properly do the USA, because USA is another bag of tricks. Like similar to you guys, from selling from Turkey to UK, me selling to UK to USA for LLC can be quite complicated because obviously one, you're paying a tax there, and two, their websites can be quite tricky when it comes to purchasing, from a foreign location. Because one, they
Mm.
may think you're a scammer or some sort of dodgy guy. You get a lot more cancelled orders, and there are ways to get around it, but it's a lot more complex. I know one guy, for example, he opened his UK company, and then through Amazon he opened his USA account. So essentially, his USA account is linked to his UK company, while others, they're a bit different where they want to separate the two just in case one gets shut down. They don't want to get their both accounts shut down. They don't want to get
That's
the USA.
smart. That's what I do too.
Yeah, so they open an LLC there, but then that's a bit of a longer process now. Now you have to go through a third party agency that sets up your if I can't remember what it's called. They get your EIN number, they
Yeah,
give
and
you a bunch of other stuff, and that can take. I think it took me like a good 3 or 6 months to just get all that ready.
For
So it just
real,
takes,
man,
yeah.
it takes us like 2 3 weeks in here to open up
Well,
LLC.
for UK guys, it just takes forever because you have to get all that stuff before you can get a bank account there, and then when you get a bank account, then you can then go actually apply to sell on Amazon. So for me, and in terms of UK guys, that's the process we take in, and it takes us forever.
Mm.
So unless we want to open an account through the UK and do it that way, we want to separate our two entities and you know reduce the risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always do 2 accounts. Like you can open one with your passport, one with your like, national ID.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah.
best. It's better. Like one is like with my LLC, one is with my Turkish limited company. Actually, I have
Mm.
one for UK company too, but now I need to register for VAT, but I don't wanna. Let's see what's going to happen. I think now people will sell in Canada and Australia more because mostly Turkish people don't ship from Turkey.
Yeah.
Now the inflation so high that people don't that like can't do arbitrage in here. Only people who makes big money and sending products from Turkey are like the factory owners, like private label brands, like
Exactly. Exactly.
towels and stuff like that in Amazon. Turkish people
Mhm.
mostly dominate with Chinese, but other than that, arbitrage is super hard from Turkey. They purchase from like United States, ship it to UK. Yeah. Now it's
Yeah,
hard.
they were.
Let's see what will happen. Australia and Canada will pack with Turkish sellers, and they
Well,
always lower the prices.
Australia's Australia's a very interesting one. I've heard a lot about that one, and I think does Keeper work there? 'Cause I don't know if Keeper works there or
Kipa,
uh,
Seller amp, nothing works there. Only
yeah,
helium 10, only helium 10.
yeah. But it was such an interesting like market. I'm thinking there must be so little competition there that
It's
even though
super easy. Like even doing private label, they're super easy.
yeah, I'm guessing even though the market is not as big as Europe, there's so little competition that you'd make probably more money there if you can figure out how to do it. Is I
Like,
always tell people when it
like
comes to doing
I will
Amazon.
say, let's if you pack the like 2K units firstly they give you in Australia,
Mm,
like pack it and see how your profit margins are better than like your UK account. Because I
But
bet you had more products in UK, but Australia the margins are huge because it's so far away from the world. People don't ship there. It's price is high, like from US, Turkey, everywhere. Like shipping they're high, so
yeah,
profits better. UK is like close to everybody in Europe. They can ship it from ground, air, everything.
yeah. I've always thought about it. I think I saw one guy on Twitter that shows in the Japanese market, like he learned a bit of Japanese to sell there, and there's very little
Just
competition.
hire a Japanese speaking one for your private level titles and stuff like that, man.
Exactly. So I
Yeah,
always tell people when
Japan
it
I
comes to
heard
selling,
too.
yeah, when you sell on Amazon, do the things that people want, sort of thing, and you'll succeed.
Yeah, in UK, now Turkish people are selling their hard because like pound is how many? 40 liras, I think. 1 pound, 38, 39. It's up there.
Uh,
I don't even know.
£1 to Turkish. Was it you guys saw Lyra over there? Was it something else?
Yeah, Turkish lira.
Yeah, yeah. It's like £1 is 38.48 Turkish Lyra right now.
Yeah, like imagine you do 1,000 profit in UK market, like you earn 4 5 times wage of like 1 month in Turkey minimum wage.
Yeah, which is really good. So yeah,
Now,
I
now,
wouldn't.
now, now people are jobless. I bet none of them will apply for VAT because the margins die. They think only 20% goes. Like you explained it very well beforehand. We will
Yeah,
translate that to them. Like I think there is more. The product VAT, shipping VATs, all of them.
exactly. Even depending on the kind of item it is, because you can get reduced VAT charge and you can get 0% items with VAT on there at all. So I know that some baby products will either be 5% VAT or 0% VAT. I think food is very low. It's like very low on VAT. It just depends on the item. So, like I said, the government website breaks it down very well and lets you know how much VAT is expected for so each category of item, and then it's up to you to decide what you're gonna sell, and also making sure that when you sell on Amazon, you're putting the right VAT category in the item creation, the listing creation, because when you create that listing, they put the default 20% on there. I think it's like gen no tax. You have to make sure that you're matching the right VAT to that
Hmm.
item,
Hmm.
so that you're getting charged the right VAT when you sell that item. Because Amazon doesn't care; they all sell it for 20%, but then you find out that it was actually 0% VAT they're meant to charge you, and
Yeah.
you know, you have to go back and get a VAT refund. Even there's one thing where when sellers sell on Amazon for the first time, Amazon automatically puts their VAT for all sellers by default. So you actually have to send them an email saying that, hi, I'm so and so, I'm not actually VAT registered. So technically, I should not be getting charged VAT on all my current purchases until I hit 85K. That is a template I've got somewhere I can send to you, and you can send to everyone else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that template. I have it.
Yeah,
That's used to, but not now. The problem now, you good. Like UK people are good. They can still sell for their VAT share all to come. But now Turkish people need to register immediately or their account getting shut down.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
just, it's exactly that. The game is getting harder, and you just gotta find a way around it. Yes, you can register for VAT.
In Europe, it was always harder. Like in Germany, you need to apply their VAT to like stuff like that. The
Yeah, yeah.
borders are not like US or Canada, like Australia. They are easier. So I never sold in Europe other than UK, but that's why I'm staying away. Now the
Yeah.
shipments are closed. Let's see. So, enough with the Amazon talk, man. I talk Amazon all day, teach people Amazon, sell on Amazon. I'm bored of this stuff. Like, you have been to Turkey before? I
Yeah,
seen in
yeah.
your Twitter profile picture, yeah, in Taksim.
Yep, yep. I went to Istanbul.
Famous tourist cafe for the Instagram picture
Yeah, yeah.
with the
Actually,
sofas.
I've got another picture where I'm in like some sort of Turkish outfit, and then we're holding like a giant axe. You know.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah,
posted on
yeah, yeah.
Instagram.
No, I've not posted it. It was too embarrassing, but I got it on my phone. But yeah, I
Uh,
did all the touristy things. You know, went to I forget the name, like the mosque at the top of the hill, the blue one.
Süleyman.
Um, yeah, that's the one.
Fa
And then
yeah,
after
we have
that,
many.
spent 2 days there. Went to Antalya, just chilled out. I really enjoyed the place. Really want to go back. We'll definitely go back
Uh,
with
which
again.
food was your favorite other than kebab? Like kebab, you have UK into like gyro, doner. You have in UK too.
But we had a kebab every day, so I can't say what else. We
For
did get
for for for the dessert,
I did like the what do you call it again? You know,
baklava.
the little yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
baklava.
that's pretty nice. Man, and the pretzels. You guys did the very nice pretzels over there too.
It's good for you. Like yeah, they will like in the comments now say it's not good for the Turkish people because
Yeah.
UK in pounds is very strong in Turkey, so you can get away with it. But like Antalya, not that expensive. In Istanbul, some places I think even more expensive than like London. Some of the London places. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. But yeah, it was a lot cheaper for me to go over there. Like I think it was a very cheap trip. Like we stayed in a very nice 4-star hotel. We were eating good out every day. We were getting trips, cabs everywhere. Could not complain.
Yeah, enjoyed it, huh? Okay,
Yeah,
man. Next time you're here, just I'm your tour guide. I
definitely, definitely.
I bet you didn't see the places I will show you. Don't worry.
Probably not. We went to all the touristy places. I knew that we were going just to see tourists, be tourists over there.
Not tourist, now local lifestyle. I will show you.
Definitely, I'm looking forward to that.
You went to the clubs in Turkey, Istanbul or Antalya?
They went, but I came a day after, so I missed the club. 'Cause it was during the Christmas period, and they said they had a
Mm.
good time. I came in and they're all drunk, and I'm like, "Where you guys been?"
Yeah, I see, man. Okay, man.
So
Thank you. Thank you for coming, like giving your information about this VAT thing, selling on UK, like scaling the business. How many VAs you have? You have VAs?
yeah, I had four at one point. I've downscaled to one. So he's mostly doing admin, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going back to sourcing myself. Yeah, it got to the point where I got too reliant on them finding deals, and they were getting too lazy with finding deals.
Yeah.
So it was more. I was like, the
Aware.
category I was in was good until everyone else found it, and then now it's become bad, and the VAs have got used to sourcing that same category without really trying new categories. So back to square one, doing a lot of A2As, and I'm looking to do A2As in the USA because that's very untapped. But you
Yeah.
know, UK taking it ground one and scaling it back up to 200 to 500K this year for sure.
Yeah, I bet you can do more. Like you do other jobs, only full-time job,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazon.
No, so I actually work full time IT. So I work for currently, Five Guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The fast food place.
Yeah, fast food. Yeah, I work for the main office, so I do the IT stuff there.
Yeah, okay, okay. You do like
Yeah.
your side hustle get to like to love six figures in a year.
Well,
Like,
yeah. If I do six figures constantly every year, consistently, I don't know if I'd leave, but it definitely be reduce my hours. I'd be like, yeah, and why I work so hard. I think the thing for me, my end goal is a private label, making my own brand. That's when I feel
yeah,
comfortable that I have something that Amazon can't take away. I have my own website. I have everything, and if
yeah,
Amazon
yeah,
gets
yeah.
shut down, I'm still selling elsewhere. So that's my thing. Yeah, 'cause
I
Amazon's great.
I think like people start with arbitrage, then move to wholesale, then private label
Yeah,
is the end goal, right? To do exit, sell the brand, do the
yeah,
next
well,
one. Like it's more fun, I think. Like arbitrage gets boring, right? It's
definitely. It's,
gets
it's after
easy and boring. Like scaling to millions is kind of hard. To sell the business, like impossible actually.
well,
I saw
managing.
some wholesale accounts get sold, but not too many. Only wholesale that there was like no arbitrage.
Well, managing arbitrage is difficult, when you have like 100 plus products and they're all moving left and right, and your warehouse is losing stuff and nothing's getting shipped. It becomes a headache. So arbitrage is good to a point, but when you start hitting 500K plus revenue to a million plus revenue, you got 100 plus items, it can become a massive headache. And that's why I tell people, if you have the money, either do the USA or go straight to wholesale or arbitrage, or not arbitrage, but like private label.
Private
And
label.
private label, yeah, I think private label, or Shopify, building your own brand, that should be everyone's end goal.
I'm like more focused on doing my brand on Shopify, not Amazon. Like you saw
Yeah.
that Danish guy in the Twitter, like Monkey World. You saw him.
No, I've not seen it. No.
His product below that up in TikTok, like he did it like normal organic videos, no like
Okay. Yeah.
influencer, nothing. Just he did it himself. Like his toy brand in USA now 2000 rank. He just
Oh, is
doing
it the
the
one?
3PL from Amazon
Yeah.
to Shopify, but now his product so popular in TikTok, ranked in Amazon too.
Exactly, and the power that if Amazon shuts them down, guess what? He still got Shopify. He still got a Shopify. He sells
Yeah,
on there.
and Shopify pays faster.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
yeah, man. Everyone doing arbitrage on Amazon. It's great to do it for now, but always think of the bigger picture, the end goal.
yeah. You see the Twitter, all the rich guys are from Shopify. Amazon
Yeah.
guys, every time they are in the warehouse, it's so tiring, but it's a still good business. Okay, let me end the video. Arkadaşlar dinlediğiniz için teşekkürler. Böyle daha çok videolar yapacağız. Yabancı arkadaşlarımıza. Devante bugün aramıza katıldı. Bu UK VAT olaylarıyla ilgili bilgiler vesaire verdi. Umarım hoşunuza gitmiştir.